but I really think gold is ready for the next leg up, and here's why.
Today, we have a special guest. We're in unfortunate circumstances in our world. An assassination attempt on a presidential candidate. There's a lot going on. Peter Grandich talked about prospects for unusual circumstances in the upcoming election in previous interviews that I had conducted with him. Peter, I'm so happy you've agreed to come on today to kind of give us your insight into what's going on under these unfortunate circumstances. I would like to welcome you to Ron's Basement.
Well, in normal times, I would say, Ronnie, I'd be real glad. I can't wait to take that guy's blinders off and all that stuff. But you're right. It's a very serious time. Today has been a day of reflection for me and prayer. But when for you, I'd be glad to talk anytime, anywhere. You're a very straight shooter, Ronnie. I
Mhm.
know you live and breathe this. This is out of love. The money is secondary or third. And it is a really crossroads. And I guess to start off, based on what you said, was you're right. In earlier parts of this year, I spoke in your interviews and others and in my own work that not only was there political paralysis, not only was politics and social and economic error making this the worst era possible, but I actually spoke about the possibility as early as beginning of the year that one or both party leaders who were expected to be the nomination may not end up being there election day. Now, for Biden, I made that based on health reasons, which obviously have moved to the forefront only in recent weeks. But with Trump, I spoke mainly about legal, but I did point out to people that there's such this hatred for him, and it's there for the record what I said, that I would not put it past them thinking that they'd have to kill him if there was no other choice. Not even thinking that that's actually something that was going to happen, but it was a realistic possibility. And we now seen this hatred, even after this act, where the compassion and humanness should take over, at least temporarily. We're watching people saying, why'd the guy miss? I mean, that gives you an idea of how much hatred was there. And Ronnie, and I know you got some questions, that hatred's not going away.
Mm-hmm.
That hatred is just an indication of when you take away the shield, this thin shield that's been there, of what the opposition feels and how this country's become so divided. You know, and I've said this, I said, we're as divided now as we were before we began our Civil War. And I think it's more and more evident now based on the last things that have happened in this last week. And I'm sorry that we have to have this discussion. Ronnie, I really wish we didn't have to have this discussion. I wish I could be saying I was wrong, everything worked out right, but I'm afraid this is just the beginning of something, not the end of something.
Yeah, that would be my next question for you, Peter. As we moved into 2024, a lot of people were predicting that it could be a really crazy year on many different fronts: financial crisis, geopolitical crisis, and of course, with the election coming up. In the first 6 months of the year, we're relatively calm. Now, as we're heading into the second half of 2024, we don't want to be doomsayers, but oh my gosh, I mean, when I let it sink in that there was an assassination attempt yesterday, I mean, it doesn't even feel real. I hate to use the word in shock, but I feel like I'm still kind of in a bit of shock that this is all actually going on in this country. And what does the next 6 months? I mean, it was already crazy enough yesterday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the afternoon before this happened. Things felt like they were out of control. Do you see? I mean, do you think that in the next 6 months we could even see more potential turmoil? If you're looking to buy gold, silver, or platinum, do yourself a favor and check out Pimbex, the online precious metals bullion dealer and sponsor of Ron's Basement. I was a happy customer before they offered to support the channel. You'll find they have the best prices, quality, and service. I think Pimbex is best, and you will too. And be sure to tell them that you're from Ron's Basement.
I think the turmoil will come from a lot of fronts. So let's just try to digress it in the few minutes that we have. First, in terms of the markets, you and I were not the only ones that have been saying this. We've been saying it for weeks, if not months. The level of complacency on Wall Street, given all the factors, even before the big ones, the fiasco of the debate and the follow-up press conference, and also now this attempted assassination on Donald Trump. Given all of that, it's still basically, it's nothing to really worry about from what I call the "don't worry, be happy" crowd.
Right.
It's not going to play a role. It's not going to play a role. We're clearly seeing now. Think about this. Let's just before the Trump assassination, let's just make like we were having this interview before we know of this. I would have said to you, well, listen, it's clear and evident that they don't want to see Biden because they don't think he can beat Trump. And there's certain people that hate him so much that they'll do anything to see him not win again. That was,
Mhm.
I think it's abundantly clear to people now that rightfully or wrong for that thought that people had, they did everything to this man now, including trying to kill him. That's
Yeah.
on the table now. There's nothing really else what could be said at all. And to think that that's just going to stop, or they're just going to say, "Oh, gee, we were really wrong. Okay, let's live happily ever after." I think that's a farce to fall into. So there's no question this is going to happen. And now, what do you do for those people that were just before this happening thinking, "Well, can we slide Biden out? Can he step down, or can he announce, be willing to let somebody else take over, or let?" I think it's a lost cause no matter what. If their goal was, and if people that are going to conspire out there and say this was all planned, it's part of the deep state, they wanted to see him done. Well, if that was their plan, they really blew it. Because here's what's going to happen. Not only are you refortifying everybody that was already bullish for Trump, you're going to get a lot of fence sitters. And maybe people like me that, I like what he thinks, but I can't stand the way he speaks or carries himself, whatever. I think those people are going to move towards him. I think it's clear and evident, and that opens the door to, if does he make it? Is he sworn in? I mean, all these thoughts that weren't going to be present a week ago are going to be there now. And let me add one other thing because it ties into what you and I try to do each day from the investment side of things. The VIX in the stock market has gotten so low almost to
Yeah.
record lows. If you want to know about complacency, just look at the VIX at
Yeah.
a time when I can make an argument politically here, politically abroad, economically here, economically abroad, immigration, all sorts of issues happening, the Middle East getting worse, all these type of things. And guess what? What has managed to perform what it's always supposed to do during periods of this?
Yeah.
Gold and silver. I hate to use adversity or harm or this poor man that was killed innocently and all, but this type of actions are only beneficial for physical metals.
Hmm. Yeah, I know. But I say the same thing. Like, we don't like what's going on. I don't like it at all, but I have to accept that that's what's going on in the world. And I also, as I accept that, want to look at that through the lens of that my investments in silver or gold are how I choose to protect myself and protect my family. And when you look at everything that's happening right now, I go back to yesterday afternoon before the attempted assassination attempt. Things were already crazy. And I like what you say as well, Peter, about the VIX, because I follow the VIX very closely, and I've been looking at it all last week. I'm like, I can't believe that the VIX is at what, 12, 11 and a half, 12, 12 and a half. And for our viewers who don't understand, that's a kind of a measure of the volatility, and it's the volatility index, but a measure of the risk in the market, or the perceived a perception of what future risk may be. And it's at all-time lows. It is like everybody's asleep. I love what you say, the "don't worry, be happy" crowd. Like, the stock market's at record highs. Real residential real estate's at record highs. Everything's great, but I would make the argument that everything's really not great out there.
Yeah. And Ron, the after the fact, the Monday morning quarterback, that's what they'll look back and go, well, we should have known when the VIX was that low and this was like that and this was like that and all. And I want to do a couple of things before we get lost because
Yep.
I just think it's going to get even more crazier this week. A man named Vince Landy came out with a wonderful story this past week, and it's been backed up with authoritative journalist reporting that basically in Asia, it looks like JP Morgan, but clearly one or more huge banks have really gotten themselves into a bad situation against someone that's absolutely now controlling both the gold and silver market in Asia.
Mm-hmm.
And I am going to tell you that when you see these stories that ran again a week ago, oh, China's not buying anymore, down one day, $35. 2 days later, gold's higher than where it first fell from. Same thing, silver. Now people that came into the weekend going, silver's only 30 and a half. Hello, it couldn't even get over 30 6 or 9 months ago, and we were all depressed about that. These metals are primed and ready. And what got me really excited, and something I did Friday, I didn't even think of bringing this up, but I might as well. I was ready to short the stock market when it got above Dow 40,000. You know that I've spoken.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But the shares have become so attractive now, and I'm even talking about the juniors that I announced on Friday while trading was going on that I was taking that money that I was going to short and putting it into my junior resource stocks. I just think, and listen, I'm not talking about 9:30 tomorrow morning, everything takes off. But what I'm just saying now, as bad as this news is, and it's bad and it's going to
Yeah.
get worse, these are extremely bullish developments for those who have an interest in physical bullion. And if you're more of a much more speculator than the mining and exploration companies that look for them, this is just playing into what I have called a mega bull market that's not even halfway done yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You interviewed Tavi Costa not too long ago, correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
He had a great tweet out this weekend where he had 6 charts that showed, well, 5 of the 6 charts showed just how crazy undervalued the precious metal mining stocks are. I want to ask you a question, Peter, because you mentioned China with gold and China with silver. It's kind of common accepted knowledge right now that the gold price, and I would think even silver for that matter as well, have really benefited from major buying in the East. Whereas in the United States, there's been ETF outflows, and you and I both know very little interest in the mining shares, whether the juniors and even up to the majors. Do you think at some point here, like Wall Street in particular, won't be able to ignore the amount of profits that the mining stocks are making, and then that could flow through in the West to both the junior mining stocks, some interest coming back to the junior mining stocks, and even to the actual metals themselves, because we've been absent from this. I mean, this rally.
Well, I think those of us that own a lot of juniors, which I think you and I fall into that camp,
Yeah,
we lost sight of how well the majors have actually done these last few months. Unlike the juniors that had given up much of the gains that they made early in the year until the last few days, the majors didn't. Many of the majors are trading at new 52-week highs. And think about this. They're looking at a gold price up several $100s from a year ago.
yeah,
Their earnings are just going to, and their free cash flow. And I really think this M&A that we've seen somewhat, we saw some talk over the weekend about Rio Tinto getting together with another group to possibly buy tech. I just think once it kicks off, it's just going to flow in. But what I really liked in the last 3 days, Ron,
mm-hmm.
is volume returned back to the juniors. Not necessarily they were driving them up, but now stocks that were trading 50,000, 100,000 a day, dripping down a few cents, 10,000 shares the next day. Suddenly they're trading 500,000 or 1 million shares. And
Mm-hmm.
while they may have not vaulted up, that has demonstrated buyers' interest is returned, and volume, especially in the juniors, always precedes price. And since
Ah,
they've been in a long decline and volumes returning now, it's a strong suggestion that there's a turn happening as we speak.
as we speak. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I just get so passionate about this idea that everybody talks about, well, gold's at $2,400, silver's at $30, and that's awesome, but that it has done that in the face of not favorable circumstances. I mean, I'm going to repeat myself, but the West, the United States, the West just has not participated in that. When we do participate, that the opportunity is there. I mean, just it's such a small market that the opportunity is there for real outsized returns. Like gold and silver have done well, thanks to China and India and the BRICS countries and the central banks and industrial demand for silver. But not really thanks to what's going on in the West, and that we have such a big opportunity, and that the metals and the mining stocks have such a big opportunity, and that they could feed off each other. That when people start to come back to the mining stocks in the West, maybe they, oh, maybe I'll take a look at physical silver and gold as well. I don't know. I'm very optimistic still at this point.
Well, I think you have reason to be now. I really do. Listen, I'll put it to you this way, and I'll be noting it tomorrow to my own followers and all. I took my position out of cash that I'd be keeping on the side to buy more mining shares last week. And I'm preparing to do that again with even more cash come Monday morning. Okay, so I am tooting my own horn. I'm speaking my own book, whatever you want to call it. But the bottom line is, I really, really think, and to tell you the truth, Ronnie, if you ask me for the life of my daughter to find me another second where a sector across the board where I can find undervaluedness, can't do it. That's the only one. And I just think that we're really, really we're coming for your buddies there. No, seriously. I like to joke about it, but I would not be surprised, Ron, all honesty, that before the leaves start coming off the trees, your buddy there is losing his blinders. I mean, I really, really do in terms of gold. I think silver has a way to go to get to 85. I presume that's an $85.
Yeah, it's 85. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. But if it had a 45 on it, we could see that fairly soon. But I really think gold is ready for the next leg up. And here's why. There's a lot of talk coming out from good sources now that the BRICS are preparing in these fall meetings to disclose something more than just a whisper of how they intend to use gold in some way or form as this brick moves closer and closer and becomes more viable, et cetera, et cetera. That's going to be the trigger to bring the West in. That's going to be when big institutions are going to turn to their don't worry, be happy leaders and go, hey, I'm reading all this. How come we don't own any gold? And that's where the shop runs. Now, what we're going to have to recognize then, you and I and others like you and I, who've been suffering for 2 years or whatever, that if these things do get crazy on the upside, we're going to have to take some profits, even though finally we're hearing all these people talking about something. But we're not there yet. But I really, really, truly, Ron, it's terrible that an incident like this has to fortify my position. But I really, really think it's all, all green for gold and silver. And
Yeah.
that I was never a silver bug. They used to beat me up when I used to say it was like kissing your sister. Okay. But that's gone now. It's like kissing a very attractive woman, the same as gold. And I really think forgetting what may happen tomorrow, over the coming weeks and all, we're going to see this next leg up in the metals, followed with the shares and especially the junior resource market now.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we will be optimistically watching to see how that all unfolds, Peter. Thank you for coming on here. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm going to get this out for my channel later today so people can hear from you, kind of your latest thoughts on what's transpired over the weekend. Is there anything that I forgot to ask you about? Anything else
Yeah,
you want to talk about before?
yeah. I want to say something to your channel if it's okay.
Yeah.
I want to tell you folks that Ron is the same off the mic as he is on the mic. He writes to me about how am I doing. We each have issues that we find. We speak a lot. You're caring. I think your listeners should know that by now, but in case they don't, you really, really, really got a big heart, my friend.
Wow.
I really want to tell you that. And not just because here we are Sunday afternoon speaking and all. I know how much you cared, and I really believe you're going to be vindicated now because I know you've been a big believer in silver and things related to silver. And if anybody knows me, they know that I was never that way. I was never a silver bug. But I really think you're going to do really, really well, Ron. And you know what? It'd be good to see one of the good guys do good for a change.
Well, coming from you, Peter, that means everything because we could make it a mutual admiration society. But I think the world of you. And just so my viewers know, Peter Grandich was my first big name interview ever in Ron's basement, and in my book, still my biggest name interview. So, Peter, thank you. I really appreciate those words. That to me, that's the biggest compliment that a person can get. I say that about my wife, Susie. Actually, I tell people that all the time. Like, she's the same outside the house that she is inside the house. It's the same person. And I mean that as a huge compliment, right? That, people, that we treat each other with respect and care. And so I don't know what else to say, but wow, thanks, Peter. You touched me, and I'll look forward to seeing you again soon.
I'm coming for you, buddy, there. I'm coming for you.
See you, Peter. Thank you.
God bless you, Ronnie. God bless.